What's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today I'm going to be breaking down the Lakers versus Grizzlies playoff series that is now confirmed for the first round. This comes after the Lakers' absolutely hideous play-in win over the Minnesota Timberwolves last night as I'm recording this video. And yeah, it was disgusting, but a win's a win. And now they set up to face the Grizzlies as the 2 seed when they are the 7 seed. A matchup that a lot of people, me included, have been kind of anticipating and hoping we would get. It's pretty polarizing because some people look at this Grizzlies team and say, oh, they're the 2 seed, they're phenomenal, they're going to take down this Lakers squad pretty handily. Well, a lot of others think that the Lakers have the potential to play spoilers in the Western Conference as a whole, way beyond this first round. I see a lot of people on my timeline that are not only picking the Lakers to win this series, but maybe even win the Western Conference as a whole. And that might seem crazy, but this Lakers team has been one of the best squads in the West since the NBA trade deadline when they made other acquisitions. And so I don't think it's unrealistic to say that they could go on a potential run. But it all begins in this first round against the Memphis Grizzlies, and Memphis themselves are no slouches. This is a really, really good team despite some key injuries that we will get into, and ultimately I think this one can go either way. So as I've been doing with all of these series breakdowns, let's begin by talking about how these two teams got here. Starting with Memphis, they last year shocked the NBA world, going to the playoffs as the 2 seed after being a play-in team the year before. This was mainly due to the rise of Ja Morant, who won Most Improved Player, Desmond Bane, who probably should have won Most Improved Player, the continued rise of Jaren Jackson Jr. as a high-level defender, and also just great play from a young supporting cast, as the Grizzlies just seem to continue to draft well every single year. They would beat the Timberwolves in a pretty ugly first-round series before eventually losing to the champion Golden State Warriors in 6 games in the second round, although they gave them a pretty good physical fight all throughout the series. Heading into this year, many people, me included, thought that we might see a bit of regression from Memphis. They won a lot of games last year without Ja Morant in the lineup, and it felt like we could just see them fall down a bit in the standings, although it wouldn't be a massive collapse. However, they held pretty steady, once again getting the 2 seed in the West, and now heading into the playoffs as a young powerhouse. Of course, again, led by Ja Morant, who made an All-NBA case, Desmond Bane, who maybe could have been in All-Star conversations if he didn't suffer an early season injury, and Jaren Jackson Jr., who's the frontrunner for Defensive Player of the Year, and did end up making an All-Star game, which many people were surprised and angry about, but he's been so good this season, and I think his true level of improvement has kind of flown under the radar. Behind the play of these 3 young stars, as well as a great young supporting cast, the Grizzlies just keep getting better and better. They finished this season as the 3rd best defense in the league, which was their calling card, but also they were the 11th best offense, on the border of being a top 10 team in both categories, showing that they're pretty well rounded and are going to be a really tough out in any series. Then we have the Lakers, who started the season with an abysmal 2-10 record. They're one of the worst teams in the Western Conference, and it seemed like they were once again bound to waste another year of having LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the roster by giving them a pretty shoddy supporting cast. However, the Lakers were eventually able to turn things around a bit and managed to stay afloat until the trade deadline, when Rob Pelinka made some really great moves for kind of the first time in a while. He brought in Jared Vanderbilt, D'Angelo Russell, and Malik Beasley, 3 pieces that fit this team a lot better than the guys that they had previously, and all of a sudden, the Lakers are one of the best teams in the NBA over the course of the second half of the season. They managed to make the play-in tournament as the 7th spot, very narrowly missing out on avoiding the play-in tournament altogether, coming down to the exact last day of the season. They beat the Timberwolves last night in the play-in game once again. It was kind of disgusting, the game that we watched there, but a win's a win. They made it into the playoffs despite many people counting them out, and now many people are picking the Lakers as their dark horse championship contenders, and with LeBron and AD on the roster, anything is possible, especially when they've both been so good over the course of this season. Regardless of what their playoff outcome is, though, this team is really well set up going forward, way better than they were coming into this season itself. But for the Lakers, they're not going to be satisfied with that. They want playoff success now, and it all begins potentially against the Memphis Grizzlies. So let's go ahead and get into the biggest keys to this series. Probably something that initially jumps off the page to me is that we haven't seen these two teams play healthy in their current iterations at all this season. LeBron missed one of their 3 matchups, AD missed one, and Ja Morant also missed one of those games. So at least one star has been missing from either side in every one of those matchups, and once again, injuries are going to play a factor in this series. Mainly to the Memphis Grizzlies. The Lakers themselves are pretty much fully healthy at this point, But Memphis is missing 2 critical pieces to their front court in Brandon Clark, who ended up tearing his Achilles earlier on in the year, and Steven Adams, who continues to deal with a PCL injury that is supposed to keep him sidelined for potentially the entire playoffs and absolutely at least through this series. Those are two big pieces of the Memphis front court. Brandon Clarke was great for them all season, especially at the beginning when Jaren Jackson missed some time with injury, and Adams gives them a big physical rebounding presence down low, who also sets big-bodied screens for Ja Morant, allowing him to consistently get downhill and get to his spots. They're both incredibly valuable, and not having them is a massive blow. This is especially a big deal because the Lakers just so happen to employ someone by the name of Anthony Davis, who is having one of the best seasons of his entire career. He's a dominant interior force who can also grab a lot of offensive rebounds, a big problem for a Grizzlies team that is now without two of their better front court players. Fortunately for the Grizzlies, they do have somewhat of an answer in Jaren Jackson Jr., who, as I mentioned earlier, is the frontrunner for Defensive Player of the Year at this point, and I do believe has the skill and the ability to give Anthony Davis some problems, maybe force him to settle for a couple of jumpers here and there, which is a big win for Memphis if they can, for the most part, keep him out of the paint, and I do think Jaren can do a good job of that. However, there is the problem that Triple J, while he's gotten better in this regard, is still pretty prone to foul trouble. There are a lot of times where Jaren, while he'll be playing great defense, he'll rack up a bunch of blocks. He gets a bit jumpy and a bit too aggressive. He'll rack up 3 early fouls, 4. He's got 5 heading into the fourth quarter. And if Jaren's not able to consistently stay on the court because of foul trouble, the Lakers are at a massive advantage. That's how much of a game changer that Jaren is on the defensive end. When he's out there, the Lakers are going to have a really hard time scoring. But if he's off the court because he can't stay out of foul trouble, the offense is just going to open up ridiculously. So Jaren himself has to stay out of foul trouble. He has to be disciplined. And one way the Grizzlies can address this is by playing Xavier Tillman instead on Anthony Davis, rather than having Jaren match up one-on-one. Now, you might think that this would be a big mistake for the Grizzlies because AD probably dominates Xavier Tillman, but that's not exactly the case. When these two players have matched up, X has kind of held his own against Anthony Davis. Now, he's only 6'7", but he's a really big body, and he does a great job at forcing AD into settling for jumpers because of his physicality. He'll give AD that space as well, knowing that, hey, we're going to live with a mid-range jumper. We'd much rather that than have him get inside and finish for an and one. And if AD settles for those jumpers, the Grizzlies are just going to continuously win those possessions. Sure, he'll knock down some of them because he's really good, but I would much rather have AD continue to settle for jumpers and fall into that rhythm than go ahead and dominate them inside, go ahead and attack the offensive glass. I'd much rather have the jump shooting AD than the one that's going to attack the basket. So Xavier Tillman actually can hold his own, and if he's able to consistently at least slow Anthony Davis, then you can instead have Jaren Jackson guarding someone like Jared Vanderbilt, who's not exactly a big offensive threat, and just have him roam around on the defensive end, which could completely eviscerate the Lakers' offense. If you've got someone as talented as Jaren roaming defensively, anyone tries to attack the basket, LeBron tries to go inside Dennis Schroeder, Austin Reeves, any one of the Lakers' interior attackers, if you've got Jaren there to block the shots or contest them, LA's hardly ever going to finish consistently. I actually think there's a pretty good chance that head coach Taylor Jenkins goes with a game plan similar to this, and if he does, it's going to be up to Anthony Davis to break it down. They need him to be aggressive, attack inside, do not settle for those long jumpers, be the physical, aggressive interior force that you have shown to be all season. And if you can do that, get Xavier Tillman into foul trouble, or even Jaren, who's going to have to rotate over and stop him if he's giving Xavier Tillman the work. If he can get some of those guys into foul trouble and break that scheme apart, it's going to make things a lot easier for the Lakers. Meanwhile, they're also going to need AD to lock in defensively because Jaren Jackson Jr. is much improved offensively. His footwork has gotten better, his finishing is better, he's been really solid at knocking down threes as well. If Jaren's torching them from the outside, they're going to have a big problem on their hands. They need AD to not only be able to stay with Jaren on the perimeter if he is the one that ends up guarding him, but also deter guys away from the rim like Ja Morant, who's one of the best interior attackers at the guard position in the entire league. They're going to need a lot out of Anthony Davis. They need him to be one of the best players on the court, both offensively and defensively, to stand a chance. And I do think that AD is up to the challenge, but it's going to be an intense workload. Next, let's talk about the Grizzlies backcourt. In addition to Jaren being a bit of a problem offensively, Ja Morant and Desmond Bane are one of the most dangerous backcourts in the entire league on that offensive end. Ja Morant is a high-flying athletic freak that can get to the rim with the best of them and finish, either by dunking on you or hitting the most crazy acrobatic layup that you've ever seen, while also continuously improving as a playmaker. He had a career high in assists, so he's done an amazing job of dishing out to guys, so even if you collapse on him entirely and prevent him from scoring, he's got a cast of players around him who can knock down shots, and he's going to set them up at a high level. One of those guys he could set up at a high level is Desmond Bane, who shot over 40% from three, has improved as a self-creator as well. He's a really dangerous offensive weapon that the Lakers cannot lose on the perimeter for even a second. The Lakers are going to have to find some way to slow these two guards down if they want any chance of winning. Now, unfortunately, they don't have any high-level guard defenders. They've got some solid ones, but nobody who is someone that I would say is elite. But they do have Jared Vanderbilt, who just held Anthony Edwards to one of his worst scoring performances of the entire season. So maybe they put him on Ja Morant. He actually has done a pretty good job of guarding Morant over the course of their two careers. He's a high-level defender who's got some size, some physicality, and a wingspan, and he can keep up with Ja Morant for the most part. If he's able to slow Ja, that's a big win for the Lakers. Although this also might be playing right into the Grizzlies' hands. Like I mentioned earlier, Vando is not at all an offensive threat, so if Jaren Jackson is able to just guard him and play off of him in the corner while being a roamer on defense, that creates a lot of problems for the Lakers offensively, even if they're slowing Ja Morant down on the other end. If this becomes a big problem, the Lakers are just going to have to rely on guys like Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, and Dennis Schroeder to do what they can against Ja Morant and try and funnel him towards Anthony Davis, which can be successful, but with Jaren Jackson Jr. and the rest of the Grizzlies bigs being able to space the floor a good bit, he's probably not going to be able to play too far off them on the perimeter, or Ja's just going to hit them in the corner for a likely three ball. Then there's still the Desmond Bane problem. Maybe LA puts LeBron on him, maybe they put Austin Reeves on him. Regardless of who does get that matchup, they have to stay absolutely glued. They cannot leave, they cannot help consistently, or else Desmond Bane is going to make them pay time and time again. If they are able to use Vando or some of the other defenders on the Lakers roster to slow one or both of these guys, though, they get a big advantage. Then, of course, we have to talk about LeBron James in particular, as he's only ever lost one first-round series in his entire career, and that was a couple of years ago against the Phoenix Suns, where Anthony Davis got injured, and before he did, it felt like the Lakers had a pretty good shot to take down the eventual Western Conference champion. So if we just take a look at track record, LeBron really doesn't lose in these spots. He's also still playing some of the best basketball in the league, despite being like 67 years old at this point. He's going to have to come up big for LA, which it's LeBron James, he most likely will, but the Grizzlies do have a decent answer in Dillon Brooks, who's a really good and physical defender that could get LeBron to settle for some jumpers, and that jumper has been pretty inconsistent this entire season. So if they're able to, like Anthony Davis, force LeBron to stay out of the paint and instead take those jump shots, it's a big win. However, despite Dillon Brooks being a good defender and theoretically being able to force that issue, it's LeBron James. I think he's going to have an amazing series. I'm not betting against LeBron in that regard. Then there's the matter of the Lakers' inconsistency. Some players like LeBron and AD for the most part are always going to have pretty good games, but there are a couple guys on the roster, particularly guys like D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley, that do concern me. Last night, we saw D'Lo in the biggest game of the Lakers season so far crumble. He was really bad both offensively and defensively and ended up getting benched for Dennis Schroeder down the stretch. Now, it is big for the Lakers that they have a backup point guard like Schroeder who can come and step up in those spots if need be, but they need D'Lo to be a lot better than he was last night against the Memphis Grizzlies. However, last year against the Grizzlies as part of the Timberwolves, D'Lo really struggled. He was really bad, and I'm starting to wonder if maybe it's just he doesn't play very well in these playoff scenarios, or maybe this Grizzlies team ends up just being a terrible matchup, and it's up to Dennis Schroeder to pick up some of the slack. Meanwhile, there's Malik Beasley, who will some games hit 6 threes efficiently, and the next one go 0 for 8. You really don't know what Malik Beasley are going to get. They need that consistent spacing and three-point shooting from him to be successful in this series, and if it's a game-to-game basis thing, that's a big problem. Now, once again, they do have the steadying forces of like LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Austin Reeves has also been pretty consistent over the course of the season. But at the same time, they need other guys to be consistent. It can't just be 3-4 guys that are consistently playing well. They need the whole team to step up, and I'm a bit worried if they will or not, especially because this team hasn't been together for very long. They were mostly assembled at the trade deadline, while this Grizzlies team, for the most part, is the same squad that went to the Western Conference semifinals last year. Meanwhile, for the Grizzlies, I think a big key is who steps up in the absence of Brandon Clark and Steven Adams in that front court rotation. I would expect that we see a decent number of minutes for rookie David Roddy, and how is he going to perform on this big stage, and maybe even Kenny Lofton Jr., who got signed to a full contract right before the end of the season, so he could be playoff eligible. Will these two guys play some decent minutes as physical presences down low? Are they just more of insurance? And if they do get the chance to play, how do they perform? Finally, I want to touch on the Grizzlies' home record because I think that's another big factor in deciding who wins this series. The Grizzlies finished the year with a home record of 35-6, which was second best best in the entire league, only behind the Denver Nuggets. This is substantial. When you can win 35 out of 41 home games over the course of an entire season, you're pretty much impossible to beat in your home arena. Meanwhile, the Lakers had a below 500 road record on the year, which doesn't bode well for them being able to consistently steal a game or two in Memphis, which they're going to have to do if they want to win the series, because if they win all their home games, they lose the series 4-3. So they've got to find a way to steal a game in Memphis, and if they can do so, they can quickly put a lot of pressure on the Grizzlies, who really struggled on the road this season, going just 16-25 away from Memphis. But if they can't steal any games, they're going to lose. With all that being said, it's time to go ahead and make my official prediction for this series. It's going to be low scoring. It's going to be a grinded out physical type of matchup, incredibly defensive, two of the best defensive teams in the entire league going head to head. Grizzlies are going to have to rely a lot on their stars due to the injuries to their front court. They're going to need young guys to step up, and for Jaren to stay out of foul trouble, be the defensive anchor that he can be. Ja's going to be phenomenal. Desmond Bane's going to knock down his shots. They need a lot out of those top three guys, and the supporting cast to step up as well. Meanwhile, for the Lakers, they're probably going to get great play from Anthony Davis and LeBron James. I think most people are expecting that, but the supporting cast is a bit inconsistent. They're going to need them to also be phenomenal, because the Grizzlies supporting cast, I believe, is going to be a bit more consistent. I think either outcome is very possible, and I completely understand why a lot of people are picking the Lakers to win this series, because it's hard to bet against LeBron James and Anthony Davis, who are two of the best in the entire world, and last time they were both healthy for a full playoff series, they won the NBA Finals. However, personally, if I'm just taking a look at the two teams as a whole, I like this Grizzlies squad a little bit better, even with the injuries. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Memphis Grizzlies to beat the Lakers in a 7-game grinded out defensive series. I think Triple J's defense is just such a massive game changer, and that Taylor Jenkins will scheme very, very well to put them in position to keep him out of foul trouble, while he can also make a consistent high-level impact. I do believe that LeBron and AD are going to have amazing series. I just don't quite trust the pieces around them nearly as much, especially against a high-level defense in Memphis on a big playoff stage. Ja Morant and Desmond Bane, I also think, just present a lot of problems for this Lakers team, especially if Jared Vanderbilt gets played off the court in the way that I think he can. I do think this Lakers team is really good, and that they'll ultimately give the Grizzlies all the fight that they have, but overall, Memphis is just a bit more talented. I think they've got a better supporting cast. They've got home court advantage too, which is huge, because they really just don't lose in Memphis, and ultimately, I am going to pick them to win this in a very close series. The Lakers do end up bowing out in the first round for the second time in the past few years, but at the same time, I still think they're in a really good spot going forward, and if they have a big offseason, they can once again establish themselves as true championship contenders from the beginning of next year. With all that being said, I appreciate you watching. Please make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy, as well as comment down below your official prediction for the series. Do you agree or disagree with me, and tell me exactly why? Are there any points in this video that you disagree with? I love that discussion in the comments below. Y'all have been amazing supporting all of these playoff series preview videos. I cannot thank y'all enough. And yeah, I appreciate y'all watching. Again, let me know down below what series you want to see me break down. I'm also going to do a final full playoff prediction video probably the night of Friday, when we know the play-in teams that make it out, or maybe even like the morning of Saturday right before the playoff games start themselves. So let me know your finals predictions in the comments too, as always. Yeah, appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.